Hello everyone and welcome to another Devlog video for the procedural city generator. I'm super excited to show you guys what I've been working on for this past 2 to 3 weeks. So let's go ahead and get started. As you can see here, I have a small scene that's supposed to be a little bit more rural, not necessarily a city center. And I'm gonna go ahead and click play here. And the last time I showed you guys the new vehicle system with the new city sample vehicles. Well, I've actually added a few additional things since last time. The first thing I've added is engine sounds. I've added a system where the engine sounds pitch and volume now changes based on the speed of the vehicle and also the gear. And I've also added some additional soundtracks for the radio that are now available, and I know they're very nice. So let's go ahead and go into the vehicle. I'm gonna mute the music here so you can hear. This is the sound for this vehicle, and I'm gonna start driving and you can hear how the changes as I drive. Now I'm going to put some of the new tracks and I'm going to drive back. And notice how when I'm inside the car, the engine sound is actually muffled. I have another engine sound for the van, so I have two different sounds. So let's hear this one. And I didn't forget the flying vehicle, so I have one for the helicopter and the airplane. So let's hear what that sounds like. And also when I'm inside, the engine sound is muffled. And let's just quickly listen to the Cessna. Go ahead and stop right there. So that obviously is the first one. The other one that I wanted to show you guys, and I'm just gonna hit play so you can see it, is a brand new prop system for the buildings. So I'm just gonna leave our character here so we can fly around. And you can see here that now some of these homes have a fence in the back. They have some privacy trees, which is very common in certain parts of the US, at least where I live. And they have like a little picnic table as well. Same thing with this one here. Obviously you have the new vehicles now coming out, but you have now a fence, and in this case you have a little trampoline, and we're going to see that in just a second. So this is all part of a new building prop system that I've just developed in the last few days. This is just a way of adding some additional polish and detail to your buildings. It is component based and you don't have to use it. If you don't want to, it's obviously completely optional. But if you do, in my opinion, it'll just add that little extra detail that is usually very nice. So let's go ahead and go back to our character here, and let's go back to that house over there, because there's a couple of things that I also wanted to show. As I was adding new details, and developing this prop system, I also realized that I wanted to add some extra polish for the doors. So right now, the only door that's available has been this one, which if you get close and you, whoops, and you hit E, right, they interact, it opens and closes, and it just does it by basically rotating like a regular door. But I also wanted to add some additional types of doors, and here's the first one that I've added that is new and is scale based. So I can just open the garage door now. This used to be just part of the model, so I went into Blender, I took out that part, and now I added an interactive door. And notice that this door is not really moving, it's just scaling up and down, simulating the fact that the door is supposed to be going up into somewhere in the ceiling there. There you go. And the other one is a sliding door, which I'm going to show you in just a second. But the cool thing about this is that obviously now that I have a garage that I want to go into, what if I am driving my car and I'm coming home? I don't want to get out of the car, get in here and open it. So now the next logical step would be, I'm going to turn the music off, would be to add an interactive component to the vehicle themselves. So I've added just that. It's very simple. I get really close. And in this case, if you're driving, just press I. And you can see that now I'm opening the garage to my own home. Hopefully I don't get to scratch the car. Go a little bit front. There you go. I exit. I've parked my car inside the garage. Now I can come in to my own house. And let's take a quick look at the backyard. You can see that we have a typical vinyl fence. These are super common here in the US, so it was kind of easy for me to model. I've added this like little interactive trampoline. I'm actually not pressing the jump button. This is just launching me like that. Again, just for fun, but just to show that you can spawn not only static meshes, but you can spawn any actor class. And finally, I wanted to add an additional type of door, which is the sliding door, which is the third mode for doors. Again, super simple things, but they do, in my opinion, add a nice level of detail. So now you have different homes, and based on your needs, you can now spawn props outside. And you have different types of doors. So for example, if I come here to this rural home here, in this case, you can see that we have a different fence mesh. This is supposed to be more rural, right? So it's not the typical vinyl fence, it's more like a little farm. And I have also here a sliding door, which is new. Oops. There you go. And now I can come in and out of the home. And when I come out, you can see that I have some privacy trees, and we have this fence here. I also make sure that when I'm doing the tracing for these spline meshes, that I'm actually following the terrain. So I'm not just limiting this to a flat plane. You can see here that it's going down the dish and up. And that is important because if you guys are using a landscape, especially for the rural homes like this, it's probably going to be in some beautiful meadow somewhere like this, and you want to make sure that the props are spawned following the actual contours of the terrain. So now real quick, let me show you guys how that works. So I have a house here that doesn't have the prop system enabled yet, so let's go ahead and do that. And the first thing that I've done here is I've added this little sphere, and you can see here that it's going to be parented to the building itself. And the reason for that is because we are going to be grabbing some locations that are relative to the actor, and then at runtime when it spawns, it'll convert that to world space. So if I go here and this is just a regular sphere as a helper, I'm going to reset the location, and now I'm going to drag this back, and we're going to try to add a fence, which is the most common use case for the spline mesh. And I'm going to just place this guy right here where the fence should start. So we're going to place it like right there. And I can just come here to the location. I'm just going to click copy. And if I go, let's go ahead and edit this blueprint, which I have open right here. I'm going to add the component. And it's called building props. And by default, you can see that we have several different items here. The first one is the spline points. We're going to be adding several actual points in local space, and then a spline will be created that passes through those points. So the first one was that. Let's go back. Now I'm going to grab this and let's drive it all the way back. Maybe the fence can come till around here, and we'll copy here, go back. This is the second point, paste. Now we're going to drag it here, and maybe the fence will come to here, and now we'll do the same thing. Copy it here, and finally let's drag it all the way to close it off, maybe around here somewhere. Copy, go back, and paste. And we're going to use these spline points, I'm going to compile, to generate a spline. And once I have a spline, then I can spawn a spline mesh, and I can spawn edge props, which are very similar to the plots. They're going to be following the spline. And then I have a third option here for specific props. They're just going to be anywhere I want to spawn them. So for the spline mesh, by default, I have this fence mesh, one complete and one incomplete. I have things like the width of the mesh. There's a material list. You can add as many materials, and it'll grab a random material for that fence. Let's go ahead and remove the black. For example, it's going to be either white or wood color. There's a % chance to spawn for the fence. So in this case, it's like 50%. And then there's a scale, beginning and end scale for that mesh. And then for the edge props, by default, I have like these pine trees, which is what you're seeing there, but you can put anything you want. You can put an actor class, which takes priority, a mesh, the collision bounds, a scale range, what is the scale min and max, if you want to add a rotation or random yaw, the prop spacing, in this case it's like 250, and then you have two different values. The global % chance to spawn is whether this prop type can spawn. In this case, I'm going to make this like 70% chance to spawn. But once it spawns, what is the % chance for every individual asset or prop along the spline to spawn? One is 100%, meaning that if this is going to spawn, all of the trees at this prop distance are going to spawn. If I make this smaller, then obviously some of the trees won't spawn. And finally, we have specific props. In this case, by default, we have like this little tree here, and you can have it spawn anywhere. So for now, let's go ahead and do this. For these trees, instead of a negative offset, that means that trees will spawn inside the fence. Let's make it so they spawn. Actually, let's make it so they spawn inside. That's fine. There you go. So 120 units within the fence. And let's see what that looks like. And I'm going to move this out. If I click on my house here and I go to the component, I'm going to click on generate the spline mesh. And because we had a 50% chance, I'm going to keep clicking it a little bit until it spawns. And you can see now that we have a fence that is following that line. And now we're going to spawn the edge props. And you can see that it is following the edge of the spline, but with an offset towards the inside. And now if we wanted to spawn some specific props, we can do that. So let's say that we wanted to spawn that nice tree somewhere in the front of the house. So we can pick a location. Let's say like this location is one possible location. We can copy the location here, go back to the blueprint, and here for the specific props for the tree, we already have collision bounds. We're going to leave all that the same. % chance to spawn, 75% chance. And in this case, we can actually have a list of locations for it to spawn. Meaning that whenever it spawns, it'll pick a random location. That gives a little bit more randomness. So 75% chance that the tree will spawn at all. And if it does spawn, pick one of these two locations here. So I'm going to move it. It's going to be either the front here, or let's add it to like the side here somewhere. Copy the location, go back here and paste it here. And now we have those two locations, and we have the same type of settings here. Let's go ahead and do a random yaw. And the floor offset means it's going to be 10 units inside the floor, and that makes sure that that there's not going to be any floating trees anywhere. And now that we go back, we're gonna make sure that we redo the spline because we just compiled, so we have to redo that. Generate spline mesh, and now let's go ahead and spawn the individual props. And in this case, we have the tree spawning here. There you go. So as you can see, it's fairly easy to add additional details to your buildings. The spline is, in my opinion, one of the more useful ones. If you ever wanted to add a fence, obviously that is the logical, easiest use case, but you don't have to. You can use the spline for anything, or you can simply disable all the prop types that you don't want by using these booleans, right? So if you wanted to only spawn specific props on this instance, you can just deselect these ones here, and then the props will spawn. So right now we're doing this manually, but because we've set it up on the class itself, think about you spawning your entire city. Then you can come to the UI, which I've added here. If you go to the buildings tab, you can see that we have now 2 additional options on the menu. We can set the mailbox, we can set the driveway. These 2 were there before, but now we have 2 additional options. We can clear the driveway, which I'll show you in a second, and we can spawn the props. So let's say that you wanted to select all of the rural homes. Click here, select, and you can see now that in this case we only have 3 rural homes in the scene, all of them selected. You can click here, spawn props, apply action, and it'll run all of those commands automatically on all of the homes. The whole point is for you to do this procedurally and not have to manually do it. But if you wanted to customize individual homes, well, this would be the way to do it, of course. Go to your individual homes, change the props, and you have it that way. Really quickly, let me show you what that means, the clear driveway functionality. So let's say that I had, for whatever reason, a prop like this tree that just spawned in the middle of my driveway. And that's not good because how am I going to drive out of my home? So what I can do now is I can come to my individual home and I can click clear drive, as you can see right here. And it'll automatically do a multi-box trace along the driveway. And any kind of prop that it finds, it'll go ahead and remove it, as you can see that it just did. So again, one more thing that you can do automatically by using the UI here. But as you're going through your city, if you see those things, you can obviously do those. And one last thing, and I've showed this on Discord, and this is something that I've been working on 2 weeks ago now, which is the ability to bake the plots and the roads. So there's a new menu now. If you click on the plus sign, there's a new bake tab here. There was a chaos tab, which I removed, no longer needed. And now if you click on bake, you have 2 options, at least for now. You have the option of baking the selected plots or all of the city plots, or in this case, we're just gonna bake this road here, bake the selected road, or bake all city roads. And baking means that we are going to convert this from the blueprint equivalent, which has a spline road, which is not Nanite, to an actual static mesh that is Nanite enabled. So right now, if I switch from lit to, let's say, Nanite triangles, you can see that pretty much everything in the scene, except the landscape and the road, is Nanite. The exception is obviously the spline mesh is not Nanite, simply because you can't, a spline mesh is not Nanite compatible. However, you could convert it. So for now, let's go ahead and try to convert the road. So we can go back to lit, and we can simply select the road here. And if I go to bake selected roads, I simply click on it. It's gonna take just a second, and you can see that right now it looked like nothing happened, but actually if you see that I have this selected, now I have a static mesh actor with the same name from the road that has been saved and created. And you can see now that we actually have an actual asset that has been saved in a special directory. So now under meshes, there's a generated directory, and then I create a folder with the name of the level. This level name is level building props, as you can see here. And then I have a separate folder for roads and another one for plots. So if I go up a level here for generated, for example, you can see that I have another level I had called light test. And I had some, look at all these roads. This is for me testing earlier, where I converted all of my roads, and sidewalks the same way. These are for the plots. So this way, everything is very much organized. Level building props, roads. We only have this one road. And obviously the whole point of doing this is that now if I click on Nanite and I click on triangles, the actual road is Nanite enabled. And one of the biggest benefits, in my opinion, is that the draw distance is much nicer than a regular spline mesh. So if I grab my helicopter here, we'll just spawn here real quick, and just gonna fly up. You'll see that not only can you have a very nice view distance from trees, which before, if they're not nanite, they're gonna start calling out, but now you have the road, which is visible, for a second, all the way up here, which was not possible before. And you can see that some of the things have been called that are not nanite, but look how high I am, and now the road is still visible. So if you're making any kind of game where you need to, you know, maybe you're flying, maybe it's like flying simulator or any kind of game where you're flying anywhere and you need those draw distances, this is super useful. Now the thing is, this is a final step, because once you bake this, you break all the functionality that PCG has, as far as obviously linking to the road, spawning props and everything. If I were to try to spawn props, I can no longer do that because I don't have a spline. So this is like the very last step when you come here and you want to just finally bake the roads and bake your plots just for that last piece of performance. You come here, you bake all your roads, and yeah, it's gonna be all organized, and that way you save the level and your city is basically set in stone at that point. So yeah, a lot of updates. If you have a really big city, I feel like having your roads being nanite does add some just extra performance right there, plus it just looks nicer. And once you have your plots, a lot of sidewalks, when you can convert those to nanite as well, that does actually make a pretty big difference. So that is pretty much it, guys, for the update. I hope you're excited. I am. I promise you, very close to being done. My rationale when I'm adding these updates is, as I'm actually going through testing and doing the last polish pass, if I see something that I feel like it's fairly easy to add, or it would be a big difference, I just go ahead and add it now. Once I release this and send it to Epic, I'm gonna start working on other projects, and it'll take probably months before I come back for the next PCG update. So in my mind, probably better for you to wait an extra 2 to 3 weeks more and get way more features than have to wait a couple of months for me to come back to PCG, right? Obviously, the exception will be bugs, but features like this, kind of when I'm focused on this, I'm just trying to cram as many new things as possible. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Hopefully you're excited. I am. I promise you, almost done. I want to finish setting up the props for all these other buildings just to add a little bit more variety. And I think that's gonna be it. I've added way more than I originally planned, but that makes the 1.2 update probably the biggest update for PCG that I've ever released. So hope you're excited. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.